I never imagined my job as an intergalactic diplomat would involve babysitting a spoiled alien princess. But here I was standing in the middle of a high-security Earth compound, waiting for trouble to arrive in the form of a rebellious alien. Heiress, the Xelari were one of the most powerful alien civilizations known to humanity. Their empire stretched across multiple star systems, their technology far beyond anything Earth had. Yet, for all their advancements, they still had politics, scandals, and, apparently, spoiled royalty. Princess Zyra, the only daughter of High Emperor Heiress, had been exiled to Earth for disciplinary reasons. The official report claimed she had repeatedly violated diplomatic protocols. In reality, she was a walking disaster, reckless, arrogant, and dangerous. My job, to keep her in line. I had read the reports. The last 3 human envoys assigned to her had quit. One ended up in a coma after she lost her temper. The other 2 simply disappeared. I wasn't about to be number 4. The sky split open as a sleek, obsidian black spacecraft descended. A low hum vibrated through my bones, and a gust of wind nearly knocked me over as the ship landed in the compound's center. Xelari ships were elegant, deadly built for both war and luxury. A metallic ramp extended, and a figure stepped out. Zyra. Even through my years of training, my breath caught for half a second. She was stunning, tall, and slender. Her violet skin shimmered under the artificial lights, the bioluminescent markings along her arms glowing faintly with her mood. Right now, they pulsed in sharp, defiant Strixanoian. Her golden eyes scanned the area with obvious distaste, her full lips pressing into an unimpressed smirk. Her outfit was a mixture of regal and rebellious, a form-fitting bodysuit adorned with Xelari royal insignia, but slightly unzipped at the top, an intentional defiance of tradition. A long, flowing black cape trailed behind her, a symbol of her status. She paused at the bottom of the ramp, looking me over with disinterest. "You're the new babysitter." Her voice was smooth, confident, dripping with sarcasm. "Commander, Elias Ward," I said, standing firm. "I'm here to ensure your safety and enforce the terms of your exile." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, how thrilling. Another human who thinks he can control me." Her attitude didn't faze me. I had dealt with worse. I simply gestured to the entrance of the facility. "Shall we?" She sighed dramatically, but stepped forward. As she passed, I caught a faint scent, something floral, yet sharp, like alien spices mixed with something electric. The moment we entered the facility, Zyra made her intentions clear. "This place is a prison." She flicked her fingers, dismissing the advanced technology monitoring her movements. "You expect me to live here like some caged animal?" I kept my tone even. "It's a high-security diplomatic estate, designed for comfort and safety." She raised an eyebrow. "Comfort." With a flick of her wrist, a hidden energy blade snapped into existence from her gauntlet. Before I could react, she sliced a chair in half. It collapsed in 2 smoking pieces. I didn't flinch. "You'll be paying for that." She smirked. "You're not afraid of me, are you, Commander?" No, most humans feared the Xelari. Their technology was terrifying, their combat abilities unmatched. Zyra could probably kill me in an instant, if she wanted to, but she didn't scare me. That seemed to intrigue her. "You're different," she murmured, stepping closer. The others panicked when I tested them. "You call that a test?" She grinned. "Oh, you'll know when I'm really testing you." I met her gaze without wavering. If she was trying to intimidate me, it wasn't working. "Let's set some ground rules," I said firmly. 1. No unauthorized weapons. 2. No leaving the compound without clearance. 3. You will respect my authority. She laughed. "Respect? Oh, Commander, you have no idea who you're dealing with." I crossed my arms. "Neither do you." For the first time, her expression shifted just a flicker of curiosity. Maybe she wasn't used to humans standing up to her. The first act of defiance. Later that night, alarms blared through the facility. I stormed into the control room, where a security officer looked panicked. "She's gone." "What do you mean, gone?" I demanded. "She hacked the system, disabled the tracking sensors. She's off the radar." Of course she was. I grabbed my gear, already knowing this wasn't going to be an easy assignment. Princess Zyra had just made her first move, and I wasn't about to let her win. Zyra had barely been on Earth for a day, and she was already testing my patience. The moment she disappeared, I knew she was making a statement. She didn't take orders, and she wasn't about to start now. I stormed out of the control room, strapping on my tactical gear. My earpiece buzzed as my AI assistant, Vega, activated. "Commander, Princess Zyra has deactivated all tracking signals." However, I detected a power surge from the western perimeter before she vanished. Smart, but not smart enough. "Pull up the thermal scans," I ordered as I stepped outside. The night air was cool, the city skyline glowing in the distance beyond the secure estate walls. A red blip appeared on my wrist console. Vega had picked up residual heat signatures leading straight toward the outskirts. "She's fast," Vega noted, "and reckless." I smirked. "She's underestimating me." Activating my hoverbike, I sped off into the city, weaving through the glowing neon streets. Zyra wasn't just escaping for fun, she had a plan, and I was about to ruin it. Cornereth Chase led me to an underground club, one of those dimly lit, high-tech places where humans and off-worlders mixed in secrecy. The air was thick with alien pheromones, neon lights pulsing to the bass-heavy music. I spotted her instantly. Zyra was leaning against the bar, dressed in a sleek black outfit, her bioluminescent markings pulsing faintly with mischief. She was surrounded by a group of humans and off-worlders, effortlessly commanding attention. She saw me before I reached her. A slow, taunting smile spread across her lips. "Commander," she purred. "That was fast. I didn't take the bait. You have 5 seconds to leave with me before this gets ugly." She tilted her head, pretending to consider it. No. Before I could react, she grabbed the nearest man's drink and threw it in my face. The cold liquid stung my eyes, and the next thing I knew, she was already moving fast. She leaped over the bar, twisting midair with unnatural grace, and bolted for the exit. I wiped my face, cursing under my breath. She wanted to play. Fine. I was done being polite. The hard Lasoni chased her through the dark alleys, my boots pounding against the wet pavement. She was fast, but I was trained for this. Zyra twisted down a side street, but I anticipated the move. Cutting through a shortcut, I intercepted her just as she rounded the corner. She skidded to a halt, golden eyes narrowing. "Persistent, aren't you?" She breathed, her chest rising and falling from the chase. I took a step closer. "You have no idea." She made a sudden move faster than I expected, aiming a sharp strike toward my ribs. I blocked it, countering with a calculated grip, twisting her arm just enough to make her wince. Her eyes flashed with something dangerous, surprise. Maybe even excitement. I didn't let go. "You're done running." Her breath hitched, but she smirked. "Make me stop." A challenge. Without another word, I tightened my hold and spun her, pressing her against the cold wall. She gasped, her body pinned. For a moment, neither of us moved. Tension crackled between us like a live wire. Her pulse was quick beneath my grip. "You like being in control, don't you?" she murmured, voice lower now. I leaned in just enough for her to feel my presence. "And you don't like rules. Guess we both have a problem." For the first time, her arrogance wavered. Not in fear, but in something else. Something I wasn't sure I wanted to name. I released her, stepping back. "Next time you run, I won't be this nice." She rolled her shoulders, shaking off the moment. "Not bad, Commander. You might actually be fun." I exhaled sharply. This was going to be a long assignment, but one thing was clear. Zyra wasn't just some spoiled princess. She was a storm, and I was caught in the middle of it. I led Zyra back to the compound, my grip firm on her wrist. As we stepped through the high security gates, the guards didn't dare say a word, but I could feel their eyes on us, especially on her. She didn't resist, not because she was intimidated, no. Zyra was enjoying this. "You're stronger than you look," she mused, flexing her wrist where I had held her. "And faster. Most humans wouldn't have caught me." "I'm not most humans," I said flatly. She smirked. "That's what makes this interesting." I ignored her teasing tone and led her straight to the compound's main control room. Inside, holographic security feeds flickered around us, showing different angles of the estate. I turned to her, arms crossed. "Sit," I ordered. She raised an eyebrow. "What am I, a pet?" I leaned in slightly. "If you keep acting like an unruly child, I'll treat you like one." Her bioluminescent markings pulsed a deep purple amusement. "Threats already? Commander, I thought humans were supposed to be diplomatic." "This isn't diplomacy. It's discipline," I shot back. Something flickered in her golden eyes, but she didn't challenge me. Instead, she lowered herself onto the sleek black chair in front of the security monitors, lounging as if she owned the place. "Boundaries must be set." Tapped the command on my wrist console. A transparent screen materialized in front of her, displaying Earth's diplomatic agreement with the Xelari Empire. Her name was highlighted under exile conditions. I pointed, read it. She waved a hand lazily. "I've seen it before." "Then you know the rules," I said. "No unauthorized travel, no contact with off-world factions, and no using your abilities on humans." She propped her chin on her hand. "You expect me to just sit here like a caged bird?" "Yes." She laughed, a rich, mocking sound. "You really don't understand me, do you?" "I understand that. If you keep acting out, the consequences won't just be a lecture." Her amusement faded slightly. "Oh, and what exactly do you plan to do, Commander?" I leaned forward, bracing my hands on the table. "That depends on how much you want to push me." For the first time, I saw something flicker in her expression. Not fear, not anger. Curiosity. Zyra thrived on pushing limits, testing boundaries. She wanted to see how far she could go before someone stopped her. Well, she had just met her match. I locked down the compound. No external access, no communications, no unsupervised movement. If Zyra wanted to challenge authority, I would show her exactly how much control I had. She took the first day in stride, lounging around the estate as if nothing had changed. She explored the rooms, examined the security systems, even practiced combat drills in the high-tech training arena, but by the second day, the boredom set in. By the third, she was restless, and by the fourth, she snapped. I was reviewing mission logs in the control center when alarms blared through the facility. I immediately activated the security feeds only to see a trail of destruction, leading to the central courtyard. I stormed outside. Zyra stood in the center of the courtyard, surrounded by sparking, disabled security drones. Smoke curled from the wreckage, and a few guards hovered uncertainly at the perimeter. She flicked a strand of violet hair over her shoulder. Your security is pathetic. I clenched my jaw. What the hell do you think you're doing? Testing the limits, she said smoothly. Clearly, they aren't very strong. My patience snapped. I crossed the courtyard in 3 strides and grabbed her wrist before she could move. With a sharp twist, I spun her, pressing her arm behind her back. She gasped, not in pain, but in surprise. Enough, I growled against her ear. This isn't a game, Zyra. Her breath hitched. For a split second, she tensed, her body rigid against mine. But then, she exhaled slowly, her pulse steady. You really don't scare easily, do you? She murmured. I don't scare at all, I said, releasing her with a shove. She turned to face me, rubbing her wrist where I had held her. For the first time, she looked at me not as a human, not as a weak diplomat, but as an equal. You're the first person who's ever put me in my place, she admitted. Get used to it, I said, because I'm not letting you destroy everything just because you're bored. She studied me for a long moment. Then, to my surprise, she smiled, a real smile, not mocking, not taunting, just intrigued. Maybe this exile won't be so dull. After all, she mused. I shook my head. This was only the beginning, and something told me Zyra wasn't done testing me yet. After her little stunt with the security drones, Zyra surprisingly behaved for a while. For 3 days, she stayed within the compound, following the rules, but not without throwing in sarcastic remarks every chance she got. She trained in the high-tech combat simulation rooms, observed the humans around her like they were an alien species, and studied Earth's culture with a detached sort of amusement. She didn't run, she didn't attack. She was waiting for what? I wasn't sure, but I knew one thing. Zyra was far from done playing her dangerous games. The hidden message I'd happened on the 5th night. I was in the control room, scanning through surveillance footage as a habit, when I noticed something odd. The compound's communication logs had been tampered with. Frowning, I pulled up the security feed from the previous night. The footage showed Zyra in her room, lying on her bed. Nothing unusual. Then, at exactly 2:13 a.m., the lights in her room flickered just for a second. Barely noticeable. But when I enhanced the video, I caught it. A pulse of blue light from the device on her wrist. A short, deliberate transmission. She had sent a signal. I clenched my jaw. Vega traced the transmission, unable to track source. The signal was masked with a Xelari encryption code. Damn it, Zyra had made contact with someone, and if she had gone through the trouble of hiding it, it wasn't good news. I stormed into Zyra's quarters without warning. She was lounging on the bed, dressed in one of those sleek Xelari bodysuits that shimmered with shifting hues. The moment she saw me, she smirked. Commander, she drawled. To what do I owe the pleasure of this midnight visit? I tossed my wrist console onto her bed. The enhanced footage played back the exact moment of the transmission. Her expression didn't change. You sent a message, I said flatly. She stretched lazily. And, you're under exile, I snapped. Who did you contact? She sat up slowly, her golden eyes gleaming in the dim light. What makes you think I'll tell you? I stepped forward, because if you lie to me, I'll know, and the consequences will be far worse. Her bioluminescent markings pulsed, faintly a flicker of hesitation. Then, she sighed, rolling her eyes. If you must know, she said, I was sending a harmless update to my people. A status report, if you will. I stared her down. You expect me to believe that? She grinned. No, but you have no proof otherwise, do you? Damn her. She knew exactly how to manipulate the situation. I took a deep breath. Zyra, if you're working with someone, if there's something bigger happening here, you need to tell me now. She studied me for a long moment. Something unreadable passed over her face. Then she stood, walking toward me until she was close to close. Let me make one thing clear. Commander, she murmured, tilting her head. I don't answer to you. Her voice was soft, but the underlying threat was unmistakable. Then, without another word, she brushed past me, her touch lingering just long enough to make it clear she was still in control. Or at least, she thought. She was. The Atotsky didn't sleep that night. Something was coming. I could feel it, and at 3:47 a.m., my instincts were proven right. The alarms blared through the compound, flashing red lights illuminating the halls. I was already moving. Before the AI security system even finished its emergency alert. Warning, perimeter breach detected. I sprinted toward the main entrance, my pulse steady even as the chaos unfolded. Zyra was already there, standing in the middle of the courtyard, staring at the glowing blue energy shield that surrounded the compound. Outside the barrier, several figures stood in the darkness, all armored and heavily armed. Xelari soldiers, I cursed under my breath. She had called them. Zyra turned her head slightly, just enough to glance at me over her shoulder. There was no smirk this time, no amusement, just quiet calculation. "This is a rescue mission," she said. I stepped forward. "This is treason." She didn't deny it. The lead Xelari soldier stepped forward, his voice amplified by his helmet. "Princess Zyra, your father has ordered your return. Step forward." I waited for her to make a move, but then she did something I didn't expect. She turned to me, and for the first time, I saw it. Doubt, hesitation. She had sent the message, she had called them, but now, standing here, she wasn't sure if she wanted to leave, because for all her defiance, all her rebellion, a part of her had started to belong here. With me, with the humans. But hesitation wasn't an option now. The soldiers weren't going to wait, and neither was I, Zyra. I said quietly, "You can stop this." She clenched her fists. The lead soldier raised his weapon. "Step forward, now." She exhaled sharply, golden eyes flicking between them and me. Then she made her choice. With a flick of her wrist, she summoned her energy blade, not at me, at them. She moved faster than I'd ever seen before, lunging toward the nearest soldier. The others reacted instantly, raising their weapons. I was already moving. Gunfire erupted. Energy blasts cracked through the air. I dodged a plasma shot, taking out a soldier with a precise shot to the helmet. Zyra was a blur of violet and gold, cutting through the attackers with deadly precision. She wasn't running, she was fighting. For me, for Earth, for herself. And just like that, the war she had started became ours to finish. The night was chaos. Gunfire and energy blasts lit up the sky. Streaks of blue and violet slicing through the darkness as Zyra and I fought side by side. The Xelari soldiers were well trained, but so were we. I ducked behind a fallen security drone, reloading my plasma rifle. Zyra twisted midair, her energy blade slicing clean through an enemy's armor. She landed in a crouch, breathing heavily, her golden eyes scanning the battlefield. We were outnumbered. Badly. I tapped my earpiece. "Vega, how many more inbound reinforcements arriving in 60 seconds? Estimated survival rate, 22%. Damn it." Zyra turned to me, her markings pulsing with adrenaline. "We need to move." I nodded, pulling her behind cover just as another barrage of energy blasts rained down on us. The Xelari weren't here to negotiate anymore. They were here to eliminate any resistance, which meant one thing. They had orders to kill. Even her. We made it to the underground bunker, sealing the doors behind us. The compound's emergency lights cast everything in a dim, flickering glow. Zyra leaned against the wall, gripping her side where a plasma shot had grazed her. She was tough, but even she wasn't invincible. I exhaled sharply. "Why the hell did you send that message?" She closed her eyes for a brief second. I thought they'd give me a choice. My hands curled into fists. "You're smarter than that. You knew they wouldn't just pick you up and leave peacefully." Her jaw tightened. "I didn't think they'd try to kill me." I let that sink in. She had been so sure of her people, of her power. But now, the truth was staring her in the face. Her father had sent these soldiers, not to save her. To eliminate her. "You were never going home," I said, my voice quieter now. She swallowed hard, her bioluminescence dimming. For the first time, Zyra looked lost, and I hated that it took nearly dying for her to realize the truth. Nowhere left to run. The bunker trembled as another explosion rocked the compound above. Dust and debris rained from the ceiling. We couldn't stay here. I checked the security feeds. Most of my team was down or retreating. The perimeter defenses were failing. If we didn't escape now, we wouldn't at all. Zyra saw it too. "What's the plan?" I hesitated. Every instinct told me to protect her, to get her out of here alive. But she had started this war. She had called them. Now, I needed to know one thing. "Are you with me?" I asked, holding her gaze. "Or are you still trying to decide?" Her breath hitched. 1,000 unspoken words passed between us. Then she reached up, gripped the front of my uniform, and pulled me close. "I'm with you," she whispered, and for the first time, I believed her. We moved fast, cutting through the tunnels beneath the compound. The exit leads straight into the darkened city beyond our only chance at survival. But the Xelari soldiers were faster. They caught up just as we reached the final exit. Plasma shots flew past us, scorching the walls. I returned fire, taking down 2 of them before ducking behind cover. Zyra fought like a whirlwind, her blade flashing through the air. But there were too many. And then a sharp, searing pain tore through my shoulder. I gasped, stumbling back as heat spread through my chest. A direct plasma hit. Zyra's eyes widened. No. Before she could reach me, another shot hit her. She cried out, collapsing to one knee. I forced myself up, blood dripping down my arm. I raised my weapon, ready to fight until my last breath, but then something shifted in the air. The Xelari soldiers froze. A low, distorted voice crackled through their "Stand down," and just like that, the attack stopped. Zyra and I barely had time to catch our breath before the shadows moved on to tall, imposing figure stepped forward. Her father, the Xelari Emperor, and the look in his cold golden eyes told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't over, it was just beginning. The air was thick with tension as Zyra and I stood before her father, the Xelari Emperor. He was taller than any Xelari I'd seen, his form wrapped in shimmering black armor that pulsed with deep violet hues. His golden eyes flicked from to me, unreadable but cold. The Xelari soldiers remained motionless behind him, their weapons still hot from battle. Zyra, despite the wound in her side, stood tall. Her bioluminescence flickered erratically, a sign of her barely contained fury. Sent them to kill me, she spat, her voice venomous. The Emperor's gaze didn't waver. You disobeyed me, you abandoned your duty. You defied your own bloodline. I was exiled. She snapped. I followed your orders. I stayed away. But you couldn't even let me exist without your control. A long silence. Then, he spoke. Again, his tone sharp as a blade. You are not exiled anymore. Zyra stiffened. I did too, because there was no warmth in his words. No relief. This wasn't a pardon. It was a sentence. A choice that was never Heiress. Emperor stepped forward, his presence radiating sheer dominance. Your exile was meant to humble you. Instead, you aligned yourself with them. His eyes flickered toward me. Zyra didn't hesitate. He saved my life. Her father scoffed. And now you defend him. This human is beneath you. I clenched my fists, but I held my tongue. Zyra, however, took a bold step forward. No, she said, her voice firm. He's the only one who treated me as an equal, not a weapon, not a tool, not a pawn in your political games. The Emperor's face darkened. You misunderstand, Zyra, he said coolly. You were never given a choice. Then, with a flick of his wrist, a shockwave erupted from his palm. Zyra gasped as an invisible force slammed into her chest, sending her crashing to the ground. Her bioluminescence flickered violently, as if her entire body had been suppressed. I moved toward her, but before I could react, the Xelari guards surrounded me, weapons at my back. The Emperor loomed over his daughter. You are coming home, he said. Now. Her breathing was labored, her body shaking from the impact of whatever energy suppression field he had used. But she still glared up at him, defiant to the end. Even if you have to drag me. She gritted out. He tilted his head. You were always so strong. Then he turned his eyes to me. A sinking feeling hit my stomach. He wasn't done. An ultimatum, in blood, the Emperor said, addressing me directly for the first time. You are the infection that has poisoned my daughter's mind. I held his gaze, refusing to back down. She made her own choices. He smirked. Did she? Or did you simply give her the illusion of freedom? I didn't answer, because, deep down, I knew he wasn't entirely wrong. Zyra had been given no real freedom, not from him. Not from exile. Not even from the choices she thought she made. She had always been fighting for something, but never for herself. The Emperor's next words sealed my fate. I will offer you a bargain, Commander. I stiffened. You will let her go. You will erase yourself from her life. And in return, I will allow you to live. I knew this was coming, and yet, my heart still clenched. I could feel Zyra's gaze burning into me from where she lay on the ground. Aichi already knew what he was about to say next. If you refuse, the Emperor continued, I will kill you where you stand and I will take her anyway. Zyra snapped. She surged forward despite the suppression field weighing her down, her body shaking as she fought against it. No, you don't get to make that decision for me. Her father didn't even look at her. His golden eyes remained locked on mine, waiting. Swallowed. Zyra was everything the Xelari Empire feared: an independent mind, a force they couldn't control, and that meant they would never stop coming. For her, not as long as she was with me. I had two choices: fight and die, or let her go, and live with the weight of it forever. My hands clenched at my sides. This wasn't just about me anymore, it was about her, and I knew what I had to do. The last goodbye stepped forward. Zyra's eyes widened, pure panic flashing across her face. No, she breathed, don't you? I turned to her, silencing her with a look, and I let out the hardest words I'd ever had to say. This is over, Zyra. She froze. I forced my voice to stay cold, even as every fiber of my being screamed against it. You don't belong here, I said, looking her straight in the eyes. You never did. Her bioluminescence flickered violently, like a flame struggling against the wind. You don't mean that. I had to mean it. I turned back to the Emperor. You win, I said. Ticker. Zyra's entire body trembled. No, the Emperor smirked. With a wave of his hand, the suppression field around Zyra intensified. She gasped, her knees buckling as energy wrapped around her, pulling her toward him, and I did nothing. I stood there, stone-faced, as she fought against the force dragging her away, her golden eyes locked onto mine, desperate, furious.